Okay, I think we're ready to go. So I'd ask if you're not speaking to please keep your mute button on. It keeps us from having all the feedback that we get sometimes. So welcome to the what is the May meeting of Building and Grounds. There has been a lot going on related to Building and Grounds over the last 60 days since we last really had a conversation. I'm going to start by asking Chris to touch a little bit over this, some comments around what the impact of COVID-19 has meant to us as a team. Particularly, you will recall back last time we talked about building the ground group having an orange and a maroon team. So we got Chris sort of give us a high level run through of what's going on there. Chris?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, when it comes to the COVID-19 impacts, there have been quite a few. I can just hit you with a few of these highlights of it. First of all, in the facilities department, we've, unlike other groups across campus, we have a high percentage of folks that really cannot telework just because of the nature of the job. So we have about 80% of folks that cannot telework and about 20% that can. And so we right away started with the telework of those 20%. And on the 80%, we have, just like you were saying, sir, doing the maroon and orange teams, which means we're trying to limit half the people being on the job site at any one time. And the reason for that being obvious, for if there is an infection virus, that it does not go across the whole team, and we can keep essential operations going across campus with that. And we've been doing this now for a couple months, and it's really going well. So we're happy about that. On the construction side, as with other all across Virginia, most all construction projects continue at full pace. There have been some anecdotal information of some projects having more of a workforce on them than before COVID-19, and that is suspected because there are lots of construction projects in which not the construction company is not wanting to go ahead with them, but because the owner, and especially with some businesses, are holding back on some of their construction with the uncertainty of the what is going to happen with that business. And so we are hearing about multiple cases where there are some project forces are going up, construction forces. And then the last thing I was going to talk about with COVID-19 is that we've always been preparing for a steam shutdown to do repairs and maintenance that you can only do during a steam shutdown. And the last time this was done at Virginia Tech was in 2001. So we're due. We should have one. And so just a silver lining of a bad situation with COVID-19, the timing is working out very well to do the steam shutdown because there will be much less of an impact on students and faculty because of the COVID-19 and the reduced operations that are happening physically on campus. So we're going to go ahead with this steam shutdown starting this Sunday. We're going to cool down the system and work on it during the week next week. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And those are the big impacts, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we'll move to the consent agenda. The minutes that are there, you've seen those in advance. Well, back to November 17th since we've had a meeting. We also have the capital project status report, and there are a few things in the status report that I don't want to just gloss over here because there's been a lot of activity in the last 60 to 90 days. Preston and I've had a couple of conversations about one of them in particular, but so I'm going to ask Chris to hit the highlights on a couple of issues that are actually in the capital project status report, but I want to pull a couple of them out and talk about them. We're going to leave them in the consent agenda, but I want to make sure you're up to date on them. So, Chris.
Yes, sir. The biggest changes, the first one is with Hit Hall. This has been a design build project all along. And so we were planning on bringing this to the March BOV to request for extra funding to award that. But since that time, we've had difficulty because there is not a signed contract with the CM, the construction company. And so we have had some discussions and some difficulty about awarding that contract because of disagreements about COVID-19 impacts. And so we're unwilling to make those changes, but we have a very good future for the project. We've worked with the folks in Richmond. We're wanting to convert this to a CM at risk type procurement. And we'll find some advantages in that, but also this will, instead of getting the pricing that we did have, that we were looking at for the March BOV, remember how high historically the construction market has been in the last year, one of the highest rates ever. And so now, from what we're understanding, there could be a cooling of some construction prices. We haven't really seen it happen yet, but everyone is most everyone is under the impression that prices will not be going up on the construction side. It may be going down. That this will also push that pricing out to the right. So we're hopeful about that. Another project that just has changed in the last week, and since your board report, was the bid opening for the Dietrich Plaza was too high to award. And so we are redesigning. The redesign will be at no cost to Virginia Tech, and that'll be done this summer to try to reduce the cost of that project. So we'll have news very soon. We'll go and rebid that project. Upper Quad Residence Hall has a very small time impact that we worked out with Student Affairs. And so we're going to have a good brief on the Upper Quad Residence Hall in just a few minutes later in the agenda. So we can get into that there unless you'd like to talk now. And then two other projects that have some significant changes. The Global Business and Analytics Complex Residence Halls, we just call them the GBAC residence halls, was over budget and has been over budget for quite a while. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. The pricing has expired as of April 30th. And so we are happy about that. We're intentional about that. And we're going out for new pricing in the July timeframe. So we'll report back out when we get the new pricing. And that was, GBAC, wait, let me not mix that up. It's going from a design build to a pre-qualified design bid build in the future. So that one is changing its procurement method. And we're happy about that. We think that's going to go well with that price cooling that we're talking about. And student wellness improvements. This is the one that's McComas and the War Memorial Gym. This is the one I just was talking about a few seconds ago with the pricing that has expired on April 30th, and we're going out in July. So those are the significant changes since our last discussions.
Fair amount of information for the board members and committee members. Go ahead,
CT, can I ask Chris a question?
Sure.
On the wellness and the GMAT, what was the range of the both of the prices? How much over were they in percentage roughly?
Let me check the quick calculations.
So GBAC.
I'll run the numbers a little bit more for precision, but the GBAC was over by roughly 30%, and student wellness was off by roughly 20%. But I'll be glad to, like I said, that's just the armchair. figures, and I'll follow up with something more precise.
Okay, well, and those numbers, and we go on continuing with those. I mean, I certainly, because I'm in the construction business, I don't see pricing coming down in the 20, 30% range. So something's gonna have to change.
That's definitely true. And we don't know how much, if at all, the prices are going to go down. We're more hopeful about that, and we'll watch that. But those you're right, are going to need more than just a cooling of the market to go down. Same with Dietrich Plaza. We'll take a look at the scope and what cost and value engineering that we can do.
Yeah, I think, Preston, prices have not softened yet.
Yeah,
Any other questions on the
this is
capital
Jeff.
project report?
I'll say this, Jeff Veach. I don't know if you hear me. Are we actually moving ahead with some of these projects? I mean, it seems like we're being kind of, I mean, there's people who can't even pay their bills, and we're talking about doing these huge major projects with the school. I mean, it seems like bad timing to be moving ahead with big buildings, as well as, like, it seems like the way schooling's being done potentially could even change come in the future. It seems like building buildings isn't going to be a top priority in the future potentially. And so I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like some of this stuff should be put on hold. I mean, it's a lot of money, especially if we're going to be hurting in the future. Why are we spending and building and doing all these things that maybe we don't need to be doing right now?
Well, we've got
We better
several
spend
projects.
something else, helping out students, helping pay some, for housing, helping there's a lot of needy fit people out there. I just feel silly building huge buildings for potentially not, not to say we won't use them, but is it bad timing too, to be spending this kind of money on something like this?
I think what we've got, Jeff, is a lot of buildings under construction, project moving there, fair amount of things in design build. We'll take a look at the contract, and I think as we move through the summer and into the fall, all those questions you just raised will come into play.
Yeah, as long as we're not making commitments. Like, I realize the ones we're doing, yeah, we're not going to stop in the middle, but ones we're going out and getting bids, as long as we're not making commitments, I think that would be, maybe.
And they all won't fall in one category.
Okay.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Jack, could I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of that. We now are going to touch briefly on a small issue around the Virginia Tech Airport and the authority, the deal that we have between us and the authority itself on pricing of the land. Chris, you going to take that one?
Yes, sir. I've got that one. What's happened is the board has already approved land agreements over the years with the airport authority. Now, what we have, where we're looking right now, is the FAA is trying to provide money back to the airport that will come back to us. And part of the FAA agreements have a conflict with the board approved agreements that we already have for the land at the airport. And so we're talking about roughly 26 acres. We have the write-up in here for the resolution, but what the bottom line is, the way that the board has already approved the paperwork is that in the event, and this is very important, this whole thing is only in the event that the airport stops being an airport. In that event, there's a discrepancy in the paperwork, right? And so this would be to clean up that discrepancy. So if the airport stops being an airport, right now, the BOV paperwork is saying that we would basically get back the land for free, right? With the FAA standard language is that we would get it back at a fair market value. You can debate, and everybody could have a different opinion as to what fair market value would be. So there isn't a precise amount at all for that. But just even this one grant, which is in the $9 million figure from the FAA, would be significantly over even the highest estimate of the market price, fair market value. So really, when it comes to the dollars and cents, it does seem very much to our advantage to go to the FAA language, because we would be recovering this money now. And this discrepancy that there is only in the case of if the airport ceases to become an airport, which we certainly don't see happening anytime soon.
Questions? I don't see that being anything but an airport in our lifetime. So would somebody move the motion, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. So now Elaine is with us. She's going to do the annual report on the university building official, which is, since Elaine came on board, the work that her team is doing to make sure we expedite the permits and inspections that we need to keep things going really has come to a new level. So Elaine, thanks for everything you're doing there.
Thank
Hey,
you.
CT, let me ask something before she gets started. Do we have to approve the minutes? I know we kind of,
That was part of the consent agenda.
it was,
Yes.
okay, sorry.
Okay, shall I start? Thank you. Today's report, it does relate to the Office of the University Building Official. What we do, what we've been able to accomplish over the last year. First, I wanted to go over some background for any of you who are new to the Buildings and Grounds team. Our office was established in 2010, and it was part of Virginia Tech's management agreement with the state that we be allowed to establish our own building officials office. And of course, the advantage of that is that we're able to handle just our own projects and not have to wait in line behind all the other state agencies and compete and push and shove to see who's the top priority. We're also able to be on site if we have any issues that show up during construction, or if a contractor wants us to come and look at something midstream. We're here on site, and we can go and do that. And Tech doesn't have to wait for weeks until we have time till somebody has time to drive down from Richmond, which has been particularly important recently. So go over our team. Following, next slide, is you see a list of our talented folks that are on our small team. And you can see our pre-COVID and post-COVID-19 PPE in some of these pictures. Each of these people have a number of years of experience. They're all licensed in their fields. You can see their specialties listed there on your slide. They're also all certified by the state to be doing the type of work that they're doing. Again, we're here on site. In addition to doing the code work, we offer the university a team of very highly experienced professionals who can also provide recommendations and consultation, and most of all, help reduce any last minute surprises that are sort of part of construction, but we try to reduce them as much as we can. Next slide. So before I get into the charts and the numbers, I wanted to highlight one of the more important parts of our job. This is something that we spend quite a bit of time on. 100% of the responsibility for compliance with the ADA in our built environment falls on our shoulders. This is a very details-oriented task. You can see our inspectors there taking very intricate measurements. And, you know, this is a place where being off just a few centimeters can make all the difference in the world for someone who has limited eyesight or mobility. So we take this very seriously. We're in every new building, every renovation, and even every alteration, some minor alterations that this subject often comes up. So we're also in every lab and maker space, some places you would never think of, gyms, locker rooms, and even every temporary event must have some compliance issues to deal with, and we make sure they're dealt with and that every space is as accessible as is possible to make it. It's an important part of our time, a significant amount of our time, and a part of our everyday abilities. Next slide. Next slide. So what this means is we are on the front lines. We're looking at both code requirements and Virginia Tech standards, which are above and beyond what's the bare minimum of the code, which is great. We listen to a lot of arguments, people wanting us to be more strict, then people want us to be less strict. Some people think they're close enough. And so we make a lot of really tough decisions pretty much on a daily basis, especially with alterations where the budgets are limited and making a change can severely affect, be a large percentage of their budget. This requires us to do quite a bit of research, a lot of thoughtful decision making, sometimes some sleepless nights, but we're working towards continuous improvement. And I really do think we're making a huge difference as we move towards total accessibility for everyone. So we'll go into some of our other duties. This is a perfect then and now slide. You see, I've been talking to you in the past couple of years about our move towards electronic. I can now report that we are 100% entirely paperless. So what you see from 2018 and our old submittal process compared to 2020, where we're able to see everything on our computers, has brought us quite a ways into where we needed to be. Our new system handles all the plans from when they come in to routing it onto the inspectors and the reviewers, and then back to being stamped as approved and on out to our clients once our permits are reviewed, and it all happens electronically. This unexpectedly really came in handy when the COVID-19 issues hit, because we were able to move from being office-based to mainly home-based in a matter of just a few hours. Fortunately, all of this was in place anyway, and so we were able to transition fairly easily into doing our reviews, at least from home. So our next slide, please. So our reviews are centralized, which means that everyone can send everything to one place instead of having papers sent one place, a permit application sent a different place, and a permit, once it's signed, being made available to someone in a third location. So it all goes to one central email station where we have 2 to 3 people at a time keeping track of what's coming in. It's helped us too. As you can see, our efficiency has dramatically declined. Our average review time is down by at least 7 days. Our maximum review time had quite a drop. Our small project reviews continues to be a very popular project where we get most of those projects out within a week. It also has saved us quite a bit of money. Our old software system was costing us at least $11,000 a year, which was 18% of our operating budget. So by cutting that out, we had a significant cut to our operating budget. So it's helped us out too. And the next slide is just an example of some of the data that we can collect and use for our own planning purposes. You can see that we did over 2,100 plan reviews in the last year. Using some of the data that we have, we can evaluate how many of those are small projects, how many of them are larger capital projects. The chart that you see can show our really intense times of the year. If you see the numbers here from April of 2019 to March of 2020, you can see where our peak review times are. This helps us with our planning so that we can plan around those months and plan any alternative activities that we have control over to other months that aren't quite so busy. The next slide shows another example of the type of information that we're able to get from this program. This time I ran it with the number of permits we had, which was over 1,300 this year. This one shows an example of percentages of permits that we issued, which, as you see, 40% of our permits were electrical permits, which I found to be interesting. You might also notice that 7% of our permits last year were temporary permits, which were the types of permits that we issue for stages and amusement devices and special events that occur on the drill field and elsewhere. It might interest you to know that our staff are busy on the day before and the day of every home football game, inspecting quite a number of different locations to make sure that all those events are going on safely and everybody can have a good time. So our next slide shows us numbers of inspections. And again, I just showed this chart to show you where our peak time is. Obviously, August is an intense time. That's, of course, when we're all getting ready to open the school for a fall semester. And we have a number of projects during the summer that just occurred during the summer, not to mention that many of our capital projects we want, of course, to get open before classes start in the fall. So August is pretty intense. September tends to be intense because we're often going back to some of those projects. We might have gotten them to where they're safe enough to occupy and go ahead and use, but we need to go back and check a few things behind afterwards. So that's part of the reason that the fall stays a little high in intensity. And finally, related to inspections, we, of course, as Chris mentioned earlier, our construction remained full steam ahead. And so we have continued to do inspections throughout. One of the unexpected benefits of having experimented some with our electronic systems is that we have been experimenting some with agricultural research stations and not actually going on site for every single inspection. Some of those projects are rather small, and rather than drive the 6 to 8 hours to get to some of those stations to look at something small and then turn around and go back, we have been experimenting with doing FaceTime or Zoom type of inspections. See if it works, and on the ones that don't work, then of course we will get in the car and drive that far. But by practicing with that and getting a feel for what we can and can't do electronically, we were again ready when this COVID-19 hit that we could do a fair number of our inspections even here on campus electronically or remotely, minimizing both our exposure to others and their exposure to us. It's one less thing the contractor had to deal with of having us there on site. Instead, we could do that with our iPads. We can take pictures with our iPads and put those in the files, and all of those reports also go out automatically every evening around 5:30. And and as I mentioned before, we have had to up our PPE game so that when we're in some of these small places that we go for inspections, that we're safe and we're keeping everybody else safe. So that's some of the highlights of what we've done this year. And does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Thank you, Elaine. That's obviously a lot of work going on to keep up with construction. I think your comment about the number of small projects that really do blow the numbers up in a very big way. So any questions for Elaine?
Mr. Chair, could I just make a comment?
Yes.
I just have to say, Elaine has been here just slightly over 2 years. And I just want to tell everyone on the committee, this is not just some small amount or marginal improvement. It really has been dramatic since she got here. There's just the working relationship is fantastic, and I don't want to say the bureaucracy, but just the logistics of everything is just so efficient that it really does help dramatically when it comes to keeping the projects moving. And we just have great teamwork, and I just wanted to thank Elaine. It's really quite the revolution.
Thank you, Chris. I've got a lot of good helpers.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to compliment Elaine and her team on the commitment to the ADA compliance, especially on the Blacksburg campus. I love that campus, as we all do, but know the challenges associated with being in a mountainous topography, and having some family members that are mobility impaired. I just am very proud of these extra efforts in making sure that all students, faculty, and staff, whatever their physical limitations, will be able to traverse all aspects of the campus. It's a big undertaking, but I appreciate the attention to details, because I do know a few centimeters or inches off makes all the world a difference in making someone's life easier to make movement around the campus area. So just kudos and keep up the good work. I'm sure we still have a long ways to go, but we appreciate the attention to all of that detail.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any other questions or comments? I think we need to move acceptance of that report. This is an annual update.
Move acceptance.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. So next on the agenda is an update on ag facilities, including some conversation around ARAC, and Dean Grant's with us today, so Alan's going to take us through this. I think several members of our committee over the last quarters have expressed an interest in making sure we keep what's going on in the ag facilities, and particularly the ARAC movement since the tour, actually about a little over a year ago now. We've made some progress on both fronts, so I'd like to welcome Dean Grant with us today. So Alan, you're up.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate having the opportunity to provide an update on the agricultural facilities planning and construction with you this afternoon. The narrative report that you received, the materials include both capital and non-capital projects related to the ag facilities. And I'll talk a bit about both of those categories. A couple of the capital projects that are in the capital outlay list that you have are Agency 229 projects. They're ag programs. One of those is the Improved Kentland Facilities project, which is slated to be finished in September of 2020. And we're really excited about this project. It includes 3 facilities. One of those is an intensive metabolism facility that's located adjacent to our new dairy science complex at Kentland Farm. And the reason we're excited about this project is we already have at least 2 studies slated to start this fall in that new facility. And that facility, it's state of the art, and it allows us to really gain a better understanding of this whole area of animal nutrition and metabolism, and how you can improve animal performance yet minimize any negative impact on the environment. So this is a hot area in the industry right now, and this facility will really allow Virginia Tech to be competitive at obtaining resources to conduct this kind of research. The second capital outlay project is the livestock and poultry facilities phase 1 project. And we've talked about that before in this group. It's a combination of renovations and new construction at various sites here at our operations in Montgomery County. These are the improvements that we've been looking for many, many years, decades. We have facilities that are 40, 50 years old or more. And these improvements are really needed for faculty and students to carry out research and extension and education. And it's also important for our industry stakeholders who work very closely with us on a number of these projects. A third capital project is the replacement of the seafood AREC in Hampton, Virginia. This is owned by the Virginia Tech Foundation. So Virginia Tech Foundation is managing this project. And the plan is to replace the existing building in Hampton that is on the waterfront that is settling and becoming structurally compromised. So it's a partnership with the city of Hampton, involves downtown Hampton redevelopment project. And the replacement of that facility will allow us to continue to serve the mid-Atlantic seafood industry with research and extension education work. We also continue our planning for future ag projects, and several Agency 229 ag projects are included in the university's 6-year capital plan. And this includes the new academic research building called Global System Science Building on campus, which will provide state-of-the-art space for several research programs on campus across several units on campus, including our new School of Plant and Environmental Sciences. Just to give you an idea of this building, in addition to research laboratories, there are a number of greenhouse spaces and growth chambers that will allow us to simulate the environment and atmosphere of the future. And so that we can continue designing the plants of the future, designing these new plants that can sustain these changes in environment, and allow us to eventually develop these resilient agronomic practices that we'll be needing as climate changes and the environment changes. Another project on the 6-year plan is phase 2 of our livestock and poultry facilities project, which will complete the necessary improvements for our livestock and poultry projects at operations here in Montgomery County. This project also includes funding for the top 12 high priority needs for our agricultural research and extension centers. You may recall we developed a strategic facility plan for the ARECs about a year ago or so. We're using that plan to identify and prioritize these AREC improvements. And the top 12 improvements were included in that phase 2 project. The third capital project on the 6-year plan is the system-wide AREC improvement project, which includes the rest of the improvements for the ARECs that were identified in that strategic plan. These projects were considered in Richmond by the governor and the General Assembly this past session. The high priority AREC needs actually made it into committee, but unfortunately didn't survive like many other capital projects. Very few were funded by the General Assembly this year. But we're optimistic that it'll be considered in the future, especially given the strong support that the project has by both internal and external stakeholder groups. Moving on to non-capital projects, there's numerous projects, and you have this in your materials as well. A lot of these projects to support our ag facilities. These are projects that are either funded by maintenance reserve or funded internally by the college and agricultural experiment station funds. You'll see that about 14 projects have been completed since our report at the November 2019 BOV meeting. And many of these projects are being completed as a result of that new AREC master plan. If you recall, some of these projects were related to IT infrastructure at the ARECs and at our operations in Montgomery County. And we've been able to upgrade connectivity to 200 megabyte service at many of these locations. We still have a few left, but many of those have been completed. And this is really important because the Smart Farm Innovation Network initiative relies on that type of connectivity. So we're pleased that we're able to move ahead on that. We're also happy that the university has committed to infuse an additional $1 million of maintenance reserve funds into many of these non-capital projects in the upcoming biennium. And that's in addition to the typical $500,000 that is allocated towards maintenance reserve projects at the ARECs. This will make a big difference in the number of projects that can be completed and make the improvements that we've been really needing done. So in summary, I've been pleased that both capital and non-capital projects have been able to progress. As Chris said earlier, despite the COVID-19, we've been able to make some tremendous progress on these projects. Obviously, COVID-19 is impacting a lot of our research, but we're continuing our essential operations. And of course, we're continuing our operations that involve animal husbandry and animal care and our crop production and management programs. So I'll stop there and I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions for Alan? I mean, obviously, our plan is to have Alan on a regular basis, give us an update on what's going on. I think, not only what's going on in areas like Kentland Farms, but also that master plan on the AREC facilities. You can see we're making some progress, particularly out of the maintenance reserve fund. Some things that just needed to get done that have been pushed away. So Tim, I know that the $10 million did not survive any of the budget, and we talked about it some. I know that some of us made contact with some of the legislators during that process. At this point, I guess that Aubrey Lane and that group are just up and down over trying to figure out what's going to happen from a budget standpoint overall at the state level. But at some point, things settle out a little bit. It seems that perhaps we ought to think about getting some of the legislators on site in some of these AREC facilities out there so they can see what really is a backbone of what we're trying to get done from an ag facility standpoint as a land grant university. So now's obviously not the time to try to do that, but I know Dennis made contact. I made contact with some of the legislators. They were sympathetic, but didn't get out of committee. So I think at some point we'll maybe be crafting a plan to say, what are the right touch points for us individually and collectively, but there's nothing like seeing them.
That's right. And we've tried to do that when we have opportunities to host legislators and even the governor at some of the ARECs. So that's a great idea to do. We'll continue doing that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Alan, I am thrilled to hear your report. And, I feel for the first time in 8 years, momentum and movement, and I'm really thrilled about that. As you know, I have peculiar interest in the swine facilities, and I'm interested to hear you tell me that the swine facility is scheduled to be completed at Kentland Farm in September. Is that right or wrong?
No. That's the swine facility is part of phase 1 livestock and poultry, which is about ready to go out for the bidding process. So the project that's finishing in September, that's the improved Kentland project. It's 3 facilities. It's the intensive metabolism facility at Kentland. It's an education and demonstration center on Plantation Road, and it's the applied physiology building right adjacent to the vet school. So those are 3 projects that'll.
Gotcha.
In fact, I think the project next to the vet school is just about wrapped up.
Oh, good. Well, we'll keep the momentum, if you don't mind. And Mr. Chairman, even though I won't be around, all the committee members, I'm looking forward to them continuing to press for the improvement of our ag facilities generally. One last question, Alan. The existing swine facility, What's going to happen to that?
Yeah, some of that will be maintained for some of our biomed work where we need to keep those pigs isolated from the rest of the population. But some of the facility on Plantation Road will be demolished.
Okay, that's probably a good choice. Although I'm really happy that there's still going to be some pigs on campus.
Yes.
All right, thank
Well,
you.
and of course, we have a facility in the basement of Lytton Reeves also where we can do some larger animal work. And so we have pigs on campus, even though you can't see them.
I've been in Lytton Reeves and seen them in there. That's a good point.
Other questions for Alan?
Mr. Chairman, I also would just like to congratulate Alan and his team on the momentum. I know that was a disappointment from a funding perspective this year, but I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. We need to have a proactive plan to connect with our legislators across the Commonwealth to ensure that this is seen as a priority for the Commonwealth. To support the continued growth and improvement of our ARECs so that we can continue to fuel the largest industry in the Commonwealth, which is agriculture. And so I think given the budgetary strains that we're seeing across the country and in Virginia as well, there will be lots of competing interests. So the more we can be proactive in making our case why this relatively modest amount of funding will be highly leveraged and will help fuel economic growth for the state, I think that's going to be prudent, and we can't start early enough to be ready for next year's General Assembly and subsequent budget discussions.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I just want to agree with the other comments that have been made. And I was very discouraged when we first got the word that the $10 million had not been approved, but I was very pleased to see how much progress has been made and all the things that are going along in spite of that. And I'm excited to be on board with whatever plan that we have to support this as we go down the road and continue these improvements. It's good to see the activities that are going on, and appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Shelley.
Appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
So we plan to have this as a regular agenda item in Buildings and Grounds. So as Dennis mentioned, it's easy for it to be over there on the side. And I'm sort of in the mode of it. Land Grant University has a lot to do with which one is the biggest industry, as Greta says, in the state of Virginia. So we're gonna keep bringing you, Alan.
Good, thank you.
Okay, we now have a couple of design previews on buildings coming up, and these are with us. Who's going to do those?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Lisa Morris. I'm the AVP for Planning and University Architect. And so I have for you this afternoon 3 design previews. And so we have a lot of material to cover. The design previews that you see here will be followed up in future meetings with the design reviews for each one of these projects. So you will be seeing them each again as they progress through the design. So first we have the Data and Decision Sciences building. This is the Blacksburg end of Virginia Tech's commitment to the tech talent pipeline. And this will be a transdisciplinary facility. As the name suggests, the College of Science will be a component of this building, but it will also include a partnership with the College of Engineering and the College of Business, as they will work together on issues and concerns and move us forward. So onto the project information. This project received significant state appropriations. You see the project authorization noted there. A significant portion of that is provided through that state appropriation. The project is estimated to break ground this November. Next slide, please. So to orient you to the project site, the location for this, it is part of that global business analytics complex that Chris was mentioning at the top of our meeting. And so this is the 1/4 of that total project. And the Data and Decision Sciences building would be coupled together with the future Pamplin College of Business site on a prominent gateway location. So this is located in the North Academic District at the corner of Price's Fork and West Campus Drive. If we look at our next slide, we can see that this is the existing site as it is today. So this is located as if you're standing at the corner of Price's Fork and West Campus Drive. There's a monument sign that would be directly behind you at your back. And so you're on that little knoll, sort of looking back towards campus, towards the southeast, and you can see Burris Tower off in the distance towards the center of campus. And so to the site plan, next slide, thank you. So to orient you here, north is off to our screen right. And that view that you were just looking at the site from would be there at the corner of West Campus Drive and Price's Fork, as if you were looking down over the Data and Decision Sciences building. So the footprint for the building will be a U-shaped building that will be about 4 stories. And then you see that center wing that is a 3-story volume that is the Commons. And that allows us to have a future connection to the Pamplin College of Business, which is lightly shaded and dashed in to the left of the Data and Decision Sciences building. So you can make that out on the slide. Just south of the building is the future multimodal transportation facility, which is dashed in there. That would be a bus loop that would be abutting the Perry Street garage. Next slide, please. And so now we will tour around the building, looking at a series of renderings. This view is looking to the north as if you were standing with that future bus loop to your right, looking directly at that 3-story volume Commons. And then the main Data and Decision Sciences building is to our right in this view. And this is the primary entrance point from main campus, which would be the end point of a future north-south accessible route that would connect us basically from the tower that you see in this view back to Burris Hall. And this project is consistent with our campus design principles and will be in a collegiate Gothic architectural expression. So if we look at our next slide, as we're touring around the building, this would be moving along the side of the Perry Street garage and then pivoting and looking back to the west toward the building. And so these 2 wings that you see here are largely the Data and Decision Sciences 4 stories. And they are centered around a common courtyard that allows light into the building from all sides. If we go to our next slide, and this would be a view back from Price's Fork towards campus, generally in the south direction. And you can see the building, those 2 wings that we were just looking at. The materials will be Hokie stone, precast concrete, and then the glazing systems, there will be a combination of curtain wall and then punched window openings to complete the building envelope. As our next slide is a view back from that intersection of Price's Fork and West Campus Drive. And so you can see that monument sign on the corner there. This is a really exciting opportunity for us because imagine if you're coming off of 460 and you are coming up Price's Fork, there's a rise in the hill. And as you come up to this intersection, this tower form will now be there to greet you as a significant entry point into campus. Looking at the floor plan, which is our next slide. significant and signature components of the building program include the Deloitte Analytics and Trading Lab. And then you can see here the plan for that multi-story common space as it connects to the U-shaped classroom, transdisciplinary teaming spaces, lab spaces on those floors. And then the future connection would be to the left at the multi-story commons to connect to Pamplin College of Business. So our next views are some interior renderings, both from within that 3-story campus commons volume, which will be a very significant, interesting space to add to our campus portfolio. So this view looks back towards the Data and Decision Sciences building up to the interior glazed 3rd floor overlook. At this floor plan level, you would have direct access out to campus to the right. And then you can see there's a transition to the Price's Fork Street level at the mezzanine level, as indicated here on our left. We also have connection to classrooms on our left. At our next slide, we are up at that mezzanine level looking down into the common space and the future connection towards Pamplin College of Business's future home. And this is the level that is at the street level at Price's Fork, and there's a plaza that would extend out from that portion of the building. And so for our last slide, our recommendation is that the design preview graphics be approved and that authorization is provided to continue with the project design consistent with these drawings. We also have, similar to how we conduct our business when we're in person, we've invited key stakeholders for each of these projects that we're showing you to be here if you have present questions that extend out to them.
Lisa, what is the cost of the design to date? I mean, have we got a number for that? And what kind of budget numbers do we have to compare to our $79 million target?
It is my understanding that we are currently in budget. And so we've made some early modifications and changes to the design, but we've been very careful to craft and put together a design for your review that has been analyzed for the potential cost and is within our budget target.
Is the architect, is that who's doing the budget?
There have been multiple cost analysis that have been conducted to date. The construction manager is already on board, and one of the cost analysis that we're relying on has been conducted by the construction manager.
Who is the CM?
The CM on this project is, let me get you that information. It's Kellstrom and Lee.
Okay.
Size of the classrooms in this building?
There are multiple classrooms in this building of varying size. Some of them are larger and will augment our portfolio of classrooms. But there are a range of classroom sizes and configurations to meet our needs.
So Tim, I think you're on the line.
Yes, I believe Ken Smith is with us here.
And I think Tim Sands is with us as well.
I am.
I guess one, is as we're looking at what the world's going to be like after this period that we're in, a lot of conversation about the larger classes being online versus in big classrooms. So what kind of impact do you think that conversation has on designs like this?
It's a great question. I think we are, over the next year, going to have enough information to rethink our approach to that. Right now, I can think of conflicting information that we have that would suggest that we need larger classes than we have now. And also some concepts that would suggest that we don't need the large lecture halls. Because if you look at the interpersonal distancing requirements that we're going through right now, that would suggest we need larger classrooms, larger spaces to accommodate in-person activities. But as you pointed out, as we move more toward remote delivery, especially in an emergency for large classes, then perhaps we don't need the large auditorium. So I think all those issues are really important. I think it's too early to know which direction we're headed, but I think that will be an active discussion over the next year as we learn more about what the post-pandemic world is going to look like. I mean, there's some, it's easy to jump to a conclusion, and I'm guilty of that. I'm a futurist, but every time I do that, I find a conflicting idea because we really don't know. I think we're going to have some practice at operating through the fall in a new way of operating, and then hopefully we'll have some concept of how long this is going to last and whether this is a permanent situation or something that is a transient and will come through it with a completely different view and something that is very ambitious. Who knows? I would say one thing that is really important is that some of the projects that we're talking about right now are very much and very clearly in the domains that are going to grow when we come out of this. Our reliance on the digital economy is clearly going to be much stronger. That much we do know. So issues like data and decision science, our work on the innovation campus, those are all, I would say, more important going forward. But how we design space is really an open question.
But no reason for us not to continue on with the design. And as you point out, this is one of 4 buildings in this quadrant.
Well, I think with projects that we have this much investment in already, and the state has already committed their portion, or we've already allocated resources, I think we should move ahead. But the process is that we do come back to the board. So I think as we go through this and we see where we are in the fall, we'll have a better sense of what projects are full steam ahead and which ones are going to be slowed down a bit.
Any other questions on this project? Comments? We need a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Lisa. Now this next one really is an interesting building. I mean, I got a preview of this, I guess, as we talked about it back in the wintertime when you were just getting going. So let's go ahead with this one.
Yes, so we might have switched up our agenda a little bit for you. So this is the new Upper Quad Residence Hall as our second design preview. And I think
I think we have the journal with us too, don't we?
Yes, he is online with us. And so this project is also a design preview, and it is geared to address growth and particular demands within the core of cadets for growth in their program. This will provide approximately 300 beds to their program. Next slide, please. So this project is, the delivery method is also construction manager at risk. And I think it's a good point for you to be aware of, that it's envisioned to be coupled together with the core leadership and military sciences building. That building was brought to the board some time ago in design preview. You will see it again in design review in the coming months as it's back on moving forward. It was sort of on pause for a while there. Another thing that we wanted to point out was this December 2022 date that we had placed here was really our most aggressive and probably the soonest possible completion date for construction. But it's likely that that will shift out to maybe the April 2023 timeframe. But that's in concert with everyone as being very agreeable because there are financial and other benefits to doing that to align with the academic calendar, for example. So next slide. To orient you to this project location, it's in the Northeast and Upper Quad District, the corner of Stanger and Turner Way. And I think it's important to note that the long-range planning for Turner is that it will become a significant pedestrian route into the center of the North Academic District, connecting directly back and forth into Blacksburg, as some of the strategic planning that the town has undertaken indicates that this will be an excellent connection point. For our next slide, then we look at the existing conditions. And as you will notice very clearly, the site is currently occupied. And you may be familiar with this particular facility, Famoyer Hall. Famoyer Hall demo is a part of this project process and will be conducted under the auspices of this project. You will see this as a separate demolition request coming forward in the coming months, so that is clearly a part of it. Another thing to point out here, as we're looking at the project site from the corner of Stanger and Turner, that there is significant grade, which you can see there in the foreground of the image, which has been really a barrier to accessibility both into the upper quad and then back into the core of campus from that area. So if we look at the next slide, which is the site plan. So as mentioned, there's significant grade issues. One of the things that this project will accomplish is to regrade that corner, and that will allow us to have a fully accessible route from the corner of Stanger and Turner up into the upper quad. So that's a great improvement that will be accomplished under this project. It is an L-shaped footprint, as you can see here. That east-west wing at the top of the page is roughly the Famoyer footprint now, so that can give you some sense of where that's located. Also of note, you will see to the right of this image is the future CLMS building and plaza. So next slide, please. And so we'll take our virtual tour around the building by viewing the renderings. And so here we are at the corner of Stanger and Turner, and looking back at the building as it will front that intersection. And you can see now that the main portal there is at grade level, at street level. This project is a collegiate Gothic and similar in expression to the two Pearson halls, which are the new upper quad residence halls, and features gabled roof forms, will fit in very well. And it is also consistent with our campus design principles in every way. So next slide, please. In this view, we've shifted down Stanger Street a little ways and are looking back at the north-south wing. You can see Major Williams Hall there beyond. And in that space, this project will also be able to regrade and accomplish an accessible route through that zone as well. As far as materials, it will be clad in Hokie stone. There will be precast with quite a bit of architectural ornamentation and punched window openings. Next slide, please. And in this view, Major Williams is to your left, and you are looking back towards that intersection of Stanger and Turner, and you can see the portal there in the lower right-hand corner of this view. CLMS, the future building, would be directly behind you, and then this is that accessible pathway. Next slide will show you the portal. If we went through that portal and turned and looked back up at the building, kind of starting where we, back to where we started our tour. This project, as I mentioned, will feature a significant amount of collegiate Gothic detailing in the precast, as you can see what they're planning to do with regards to that portal. And there are significant heraldry opportunities all around this building. So it will have a similar flavor to the two Pearson halls. To the floor plans, the ground floor has quite a bit of common space in it, including and there is included in there a residence life coordinator, a staff apartment on site. There is, off of the portal, featured dual entrances into this building, so it will be very unique in that way. And then there's the company meeting room / classroom with second through fifth floor being the residence hall component. And so to the last slide, please. Our recommendation is that the design preview graphics be approved and authorization be provided to continue with the project design consistent with what we've shown you here.
Questions on this project?
In the design, I noted the majority of the rooms appear to be triples. Is that, and Tim, you might be able to address this a little bit better. Is that in keeping with the direction we're heading, or I'm not sure?
It's a little too early to know. You raise a great question. We're in the midst of planning for the fall and occupation of our residence halls. So we're going to have I think, a good sense of what that will look like for this coming fall by the first week of June. But we have to plan post-pandemic, and we just don't really know where we're going to land. I think it's safe to say that we're going to be doing social distancing for a while, but it's really hard to predict where that's going to land.
Right. I'm not talking about the COVID issue. I'm just talking about triples in general. Let's pretend like the COVID never existed. How would that fit into the mold of what we're thinking about?
Well, I think that maybe General Fullhart could comment on that, because I think that's more, he may have more insights in that regard.
Yes, thank you, President Sands. And to your question, we have both doubles and triples in our Pearson halls. For us, having roommates is actually part of the training, the regime that we want to have, especially as we start with our new cadets. They're learning how to be teammates with one another, to work together. And so we're perfectly comfortable with the 2-person and 3-person concept. The rooms are sized specifically for the Corps because of the additional uniform items and other training equipment that they have through the ROTC. So we're very, very comfortable with that construct.
Okay, thank you.
So General, in conversation back in the winter, you're headed to 1,400, I believe. So how are things looking this class coming up?
Well, thank you for asking. First, I would tell you that tomorrow we'll be pleased to see 226 of our cadets graduating, with an additional 50 who are graduating having completed their 5th year of studies. All but 45 of those are going to be commissioning into the armed services of our country. We continue to be the highest commissioning rate of all 6 senior military colleges in the country by a considerable amount. Of the 45 who are in our citizen leader track, 8 of those are going to be joining the Marine Corps through the PLC program. And 86% of our citizen leader track cadets already have jobs starting their careers because they are in high demand by people who recognize the value of our leadership program. In terms of our growth, of our numbers are looking right now that we will continue to grow the Corps again this year. We were at 1154 last year, where we could be as high as 1215. So if I had this here, so if you all would like to join me, we could actually use that new building starting this fall, because we are continuing to grow and get ready out there. We have about 50% of our incoming class is out of state. 22% are going to be women. Again, higher numbers than even the Department of Defense. And so we're very excited about where the program is headed. And obviously, when you have cadets coming to you from about 40 states from around the country and 17 countries from around the world, the reputation of the program is seen in the numbers and the growth that we're enjoying.
Good update. Thank you for that.
Sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a question for the General? The this is really exciting news. This is a program on the move, and a lot of things are happening there. How many students does VMI have currently, General?
They're going to be, I think, in the neighborhood of about 23 to 2,500. They're, of course, limited by their facilities. And so that's, I think, about what they run.
Okay.
And you mentioned 3-person rooms. They have 5-person rooms. So I think we're doing pretty good.
Honestly, it's just a great success story that we have going on at Virginia Tech. So thank you for that. Any other questions? So we need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? So the design preview, let's move on to the next one. So now we go to Northern Virginia. At least I jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah, here we go.
This will be unlike any of the architecture you see on our campus in Blacksburg. But I think there's some clever ways to make sure we got a little pokey stone around some of the base of the building. I think it's been an interesting conversation between our team and Alexandria about what this looks like. And at least it's been through discussions with their planning area up there. So there's a lot of work going on, but it doesn't look like Blacksburg because it's not Blacksburg.
Exactly. So thank you for teeing that up perfectly. So let's pivot away from our Blacksburg main campus to the Innovation Campus here, which is the other end of our Tech Talent Pipeline initiative and our support for that. This is a unique opportunity for Virginia Tech to create a bold urban identity for us, very different in contrast with our main campus, which, we have our beautiful landscape. It's very much a Sweetbriar campus, organized around ideal quadrangles. And, we have all of our Hokie Stone and Collegiate Gothic here. And it's a beautiful, lovely campus. And this is our opportunity to really contrast that and find the complement to that in a dense urban environment, sitting right on the banks of the Potomac, looking across over into our nation's capital. So it's just a really, from one dramatic, beautiful campus to here's an opportunity for another. And then when we really think about this as a catalyst for a new innovation district, it really sets us up right there in the core of an economic and an engine. And so we think about that as well when we're thinking about this campus. It's just really a singular opportunity for us at this moment in time. So if we go to the next slide, I think it's really important to note that the primary purpose is to create a graduate level campus around computer science and computer engineering that really goes to that commitment with the state that's outlined in the MOU and towards that overall economic impact that is a part of this whole Tech Talent Pipeline initiative. And it is so therefore funded through that state appropriation specifically for this project. And so that's the total project authorization at $275 million. We're estimating construction completion in early 2024 and opening the doors for classes that fall of 2024. You notice there's a significant period of time between when we're estimating substantial completion and when classes would start. But this project will likely be really heavily integrated with technology, and that will take us a little bit of time to upfit and test and make sure it's all ready to go for classes in the fall. So next slide, please. Similar to main campus, where we have our campus design principles that really guide everything that we do architecturally and design-wise, we wanted to set out with some principles for the innovation campus as well. And so these were developed 10 principles were developed in January of 2019 with the delivery team for the overall project. And they've really guided this process to date. A couple here, we show 5 here and 5 on the next slide, but to really bring your attention to that first principle where we talk about the creation of that Virginia Tech experience and that identity that I was just speaking about. So, you know, imagine, if you will, standing in the middle of the drill field, looking around, and when you're there, you know that you're at Virginia Tech. There's nowhere else in the world that you could possibly be. That is a singular identity for us. Now here's an opportunity for us to create an equally engaging, interesting, and unique experience in the core of this new campus that is one of our goals, that when you are there, you know that you were at Virginia Tech's Innovation Campus. Another very important principle is universal design and accessibility that is woven throughout. Because we're creating this campus, it's about 3.5 acres from whole cloth, so that we have the opportunity to adjust and address grades across the entire campus from the outset. And one of our goals is that we don't have stairs in our landscape, and that we really create it so that it's a gentle grade, 5% slope or less. So you wouldn't even need handrails in order to be able to navigate the grade change from one end of the campus to the other. So to our next slide, featuring our next 5 design principles to draw your attention to. I think Dr. Collins, who will be joining us full-time in August, has mentioned some of these already, and some of the things that he's spoken about, specifically the connectivity and the integration of technology. And so those have been key principles that are integrated in everything that we've done thus far and all of our thinking, but also to bring your attention to resiliency, flexibility, and sustainability, which are very integral into the design we'll be showing you here today. So to the project location, with north up and the Potomac to the right, the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus will be located in phase 1 of North Potomac Yard redevelopment that's located in Alexandria. And it's really that darker maroon indication there. So that would be in phase 1, and phase 2 is in the sort of the lighter maroon to across Potomac Avenue there to the west of our main campus. And that comprises the future innovation district. So we're right in the middle of that. We are fortunate that we will be located practically on top of a new metro stop. Where the metro stop is indicated there, the future Potomac Yard Metro, it is about a 5-minute walk from our Academic 1 building. So it's very close in proximity, and allows great connectivity throughout the region. This site is about 2 miles south of the future Amazon HQ2, which you can see up there to the north. So moving to a view of our campus site plan. This is really a master plan for our campus. So to orient you to this a little bit, now we've pivoted. So north is to your screen left here. And this little section right here would comprise our campus. It's between 3.5 and 4 acres in size. And it's at the north end of that North Potomac Yard phase 1 development. Lots to say there, but so that gives you some orientation of where this is located. And that metro that we were just looking at, that stop, would just be down a couple of blocks to the right of this image. So looking at this, we want to orient you also to Potomac Avenue, which runs across the bottom of this image. You can see that would be north-south Potomac Avenue. The site is bounded by a future city park, which would be a linear park and have lots of connectivity throughout the region. And then on the south edge, it's bounded by extension of East Reed Avenue. The approach to the campus, the main approach coming from the metro, you'd come up the retail street and arrive at this urban entry plaza into the campus. And then you would take this accessible route through the campus into the campus green that would be that center location that I think we all envision, that from that location you would look around and that you would know you're nowhere else on the earth except the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus. So it's an exciting opportunity for us also to create this here because it allows us to have and host game day events at this site and location, which is something that we currently don't have as an amenity in the DC metro area. The academic one building is what we're really featuring in here today and bringing before you for design preview. But I think it's important to note that the campus master plan includes room for growth. So the academic one building is 300,000 gross square feet. Our master planning allows for academic 2 and 3 to be future growth for Virginia Tech on the order of 150,000 gross square feet apiece. So that would be a total of 600,000 gross square feet to make up the entire campus. It's also important to note and bring your attention to that innovation building, which is directly across that urban plaza. And that is where Virginia Tech will have lease space and we'll be able to host an incubator within that facility. And so these next few slides that I want to share with you are really technical slides and, very different from most of our design previews. We'll get into some of these technical aspects, but I think you'll find them very interesting and they show the thinking behind a lot of the strategies that we've employed, that we're employing now in the design process, but also that we've really looked for the long game and looking towards how we will grow and phase in over the future. Decidedly moving us towards net zero and carbon neutrality, a very sustainable approach here for this campus. One such long-range strategy that I want to bring your attention to is you see that series of dots in the middle of the slide. Those indicate a future potential for geothermal wells. And that is off of our campus. That would be in the city park. So we've been working very closely with our development partners, the city of Alexandria, as well as the park designers to ensure that they're designing the park in such a way that we would be able to implement these in the future as we would likely need them in the future. And that we're working very closely with the city to ensure that we have our agreements in place with them and strategies in order to be able to work with them to employ this in the future. And they're very excited about it for their part because they feel that this would be a really interesting feature in the park and a great sustainability feature that the city would love to host within the parkscape itself. But now to some more near-term strategies. One of them that came to the forefront was the photovoltaics and solar generation. And that's really our best renewable energy strategy and source for the site right now that we can really gain the maximum benefits in the near term from. And so if we want to go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about how that triggered so much thinking around how we could maximize that solar generation potential if we really started to think about shaping the building to maximize that. And so our design team utilized some very sophisticated algorithms and conducted a computational analysis wherein they modeled different designs and applied different generations of solar angles and things to 420 iterations total to create what we found to be the ideal form to maximize our solar generation potential with this building. So to the next slide, we want to share with you also some of the additional thinking around that building envelope. It would be very different from our collegiate Gothic Hokie stone buildings. And so we really focused in on a modular strategy, looking at different kits of parts and different configurations with each one of those kits of parts that really allows us to balance and optimize both the solar generative potential with photovoltaics on some and less on others, and then balancing thermal comfort, daylighting, and heat gain across all of these. And thinking as well about the materials and what those might be, which really led us to thinking about utilizing a very warm material, vertical material such as terracotta, and that balances very nicely with the photovoltaics overall. So if we look at our next slide, to share with you, we pulled that notion and utilizing that as a warm component in the overall palette for this new building directly from Hokie Stone. And so I think it's really important that we are thinking about incorporating Hokie Stone in a variety of ways. And so one of them is the color palette that it lends to this new facility. So a combination of those warm and cool tones directly from what our stone palette is. And we really want to honor that. And it gives us an opportunity to also look at Hokie Stone and think about combining it in new ways for this particular campus that are complementary to its urban environment while still tying it very closely to main campus. And so now to the shape of the building and the form that we arrived at. This is the zoning envelope that we started with. So this is the maximum potential that size and shape that could be built on that particular parcel. And then to our next slide, we show how we applied that generative analysis to carve away at that form to start to maximize that solar generation potential for this particular building. And it really carved and shaped the form that you will see. And so on the next slide, we just showed further optimization for the site and making some modifications there. And then this next slide, we really show how we then lifted and carved that shape. One of the important features here is that we lifted it away from the ground plane to create a very transparent layer at the ground plane and allow us to really engage directly with the public realm. This is an exciting opportunity for Virginia Tech to really explore and sort of push this notion of science on display. It really gives us an opportunity to promote the work that we are doing in this facility and to share that very openly and with that public realm. And we think it will be a very exciting opportunity. So to our next slide. The resulting form is a very dramatic statement for Virginia Tech. And I think it's really compelling that it's derived directly from the application of science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is reflective of the type of work that will take place inside the building itself. And so I think that's just really, really compelling, and hope that you agree with me there. I think it really speaks to what Virginia Tech is all about. And to orient you to this view, we are looking north into the center of campus, and you can see Washington, D.C. off in the distance. The future Academic 2 building is ghosted an image to your right, and Academic 3 beyond there. But one thing that's very interesting and unique about this opportunity is for this fifth facade, that this building is really in the round because we're directly next to the Reagan National Airport, and airplanes will be coming in day and night. And this is really an opportunity to further showcase Virginia Tech. And then each of these facets will be optimized based on that kit of parts that I was talking about. So optimized for solar generation or dealing with glare or addressing heat gain, what each particular facet will be challenged to address. And now our next slide, if we want to zoom down to the street level. So this would be with the retail street behind us, the innovation district behind us, and we're approaching the campus at its urban front door. The innovation center would be directly to your screen right, and you can see Academic 2 ghosted there, also on the right in the foreground. And this would be about that 5-minute walk from the metro stop to reach our campus right here. So in our next slide, we'll take a little trip very quickly where we've gone through the heart of campus. We've approach this area on a very fully accessible route from the urban plaza down into the campus green. Here we've pivoted back towards the building, looking up at that facade and elevation that will have the views directly out towards the Capitol. There's also a roof terrace up above at the 8th story that will have those views out. And we have at the ground plane on that solid Hokie stone base, a plinth, an anchor for this dynamic gem form. We will locate another terrace there so that you can have views out over the campus green. We're also incorporating into the campus site walls, some Hokie stone in there as well. To the next slide, this is a view if you were approaching the campus down Potomac Avenue. Say you're coming from Amazon headquarters or the Pentagon, this would be your view. It would start to reveal some of the interesting facets of the building. And to the next slide, this is the view of the very urban corner of the campus at Potomac and East Reed Avenue. The future growth of the North Potomac Yard would be directly behind us. That would be phase 2. Those buildings will be significantly taller. Heights are allowed in this particular part of the district and will be directly adjacent to that dense urban redevelopment there in the future. So to our next slide to talk a little bit about the program flexibility. Usually we don't get into this level of detail, but I think it's really important to explain a little bit about that. The Alexandria entitlements process is fairly rigorous, and so that we've needed to accelerate the exterior envelope and site design process much faster than where we are in all of our building programming. And sort of as a strategy to be able to address that sort of out of traditional sequence event, the strategy to create a very flexible container, I think is really going to work well for us here. So that was our strategy going in, is that we create this shell that has a lot of flexibility in the structural bays and the way that it's organized and laid out, that allows us then to move forward with multiple options and flexibility going into the programming process that we're just undertaking now. This also allows us to have a building that will be very resilient for future changes, because we don't know what the future will hold. And so that we will be able to adapt and change within the building over time as a part of this general overall strategy. So to our next slide, we can see that we have 11 stories for the building. 8 of the floor plates are at the larger footprint, the full footprint, and then we have 3 from the terrace level up that comprise a tower element there that you see. The perimeter shape, because of the building shape, a strategy to deal with that shape is to orient and organize it so that a lot of the circulation is around the perimeter. And we're looking to couple collaboration space, shared space along that, and so that there can be a general enjoyment of the views out of the building. So for our last slide, our recommendation is that the design preview graphics be approved and that authorization be provided to continue with the project design consistent with what we've shown you here today. Oh, sorry. Chairman, yes, you're on mute.
That's an awful lot. I think this is actually our first look as a committee at the design for this campus. I'll remind you that this building is 300,000 square feet. Next 2 buildings, I believe, are 150,000 square feet each. All right.
Yes.
Sustainability is a very big part, obviously. One of the things, questions I read through with our team earlier on was the efficiency of the floor plates. Let's make sure that we don't have a great building, but the floor plans don't work. So you saw the different floor forward that you showed there and the flexibility built in. But, so questions, observations, this is a big move forward.
Lisa, this is pretty impressive. It's certainly a step forward from the hokey stone that we're leaving in Blacksburg.
It's a
I
very,
thought Preston, you were going to say, where is the concrete?
Now that's in there. That's what's holding the building up.
yes. Yes.
Very impressive job.
The team that we've had and that we've put together for this has just been incredible.
So let's give us some idea of the conversations with Alexandria City.
With the city. So the entitlements process, as I mentioned, is very rigorous. And so we deal with planning and zoning. We also have the Potomac Yard Design Advisory Committee, which is a separate committee outside of planning and zoning. We also have the Planning and Zoning Board. And then we go at periods we'll be in front of city council as well. And so for that process, we've been laying the groundwork, doing a lot of the intermediate steps with the goal to being in front of city council in October for final approval of the entitlements process so that we would be free and clear to undertake construction on our pace.
Randy, observations from you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Lisa. That was, I mean, I can't say it any better than Lisa says it. I always try to mimic her words because she describes it so beautifully, and the kind of interplay between the two campuses and what that means for us. So, you know, just super pleased with it. It is we can't really understate or overstate rather the significance of the project overall. We are working with our partners across the full district to put together a full plan. And so we're doing it in lockstep with JBG Smith, the developer of National Landing in general. The city, to your question, has been very supportive. They have been working with us every step of the way and really created glide paths for us. So while it's a lengthy process, it's still a much shorter process than typical. And so we're, you know, just met all of our major milestones successfully. The coming weeks and months are going to continue to be really important, but what we feel optimistic that things will keep going well. Thanks for the question.
Questions, observations?
Just a quick question, back to the city. The design is quite interesting and it's going to put us on the map. Does the city have any approval authority over the actual design of the building?
Yes, they do. And so that is that Potomac Yard Design Advisory Committee, as well as the city staff themselves. And so we've been working very close with the city staff, and we've been in front of the Design Advisory Committee several times already. And we have gotten extremely positive feedback the whole way.
Okay, good.
What is your perspective on the timeline? How realistic is the timeline as it stands right now?
So we have amazingly kept right on target for the first major milestone is getting that entitlements approval through the city. They've actually been very good to work with through all of the COVID-19 issues, and have changed some things around to try to accelerate and continue to meet that schedule. And so that's still working well as planned. In terms of the design process, it's moving forward on target. And we also have the construction manager at risk already on board and a part of the team. And so they're joining all of the team and project planning design meetings as well. So all indications are that we are in good shape with the schedule.
God, it looks great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Other observations or questions?
Yeah.
So we have-
CT, can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had gotten, like you, a preview of this. And I have to say that the work that's been done on this is just been incredible. Lisa and her team have really come up with something that I think is going to really, really provide an incredible footprint for us in Northern Virginia. So thanks for all the hard work everybody's done.
Yeah, the team gets all the credit.
Okay, we have a recommendation there. Would somebody care to recommend that design preview graphic be approved and authorization to be provided to and continue with the project design consistent with the workshop?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, good work. A lot of exciting things going on in Virginia Tech in spite of the issues that we're going through today. So before I talk about future agenda items, Cyril or Tim, anything you want to add to today's conversation?
I just appreciate your willingness to stay engaged through this COVID-19 crisis. But I'd also like to add my thanks to Lisa and Brandy and the whole team for doing a remarkable job. I look at this particular building, it is just a building, but it's also the anchor of a 50-year, I think, vision for an expanded footprint and role for Virginia Tech as an urban and rural land grant. And I think it's an exciting, essentially marker or initial move that will, I think, be very visible throughout the Commonwealth and give us some global visibility as well. So thanks for, I know the work that this team has done to keep this project on track, not just on the facility side, but every other aspect of what we're doing is absolutely phenomenal. Someday we'll tell you all about it, but for now, it's full steam ahead.
Good. Other comments? Yes, you've been unusually quiet today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to sit in on your committee meeting. And I also got a preview of this, and Lisa knows that the first word I said was bold.
Yes.
And the second was beautiful. It really is going to make a statement for Virginia Tech here as I sit in a Civil War era building right down the road from where our campus is going to be.
But just, I don't think we're having any funding issues, so I don't believe we're going to need a joint meeting this time around.
I think you're right.
Okay. Other comments? Future agenda items. We will continue with design previews and reviews as needed going forward. Obviously, things could be flexible between now and the next time we're together in this committee. We will continue to have the ag update. I think that's something that everybody's very interested in. And hopefully sometime we'll get back to tours. This committee is famous for. We have Kentland tour up. We also want to circle back and do the athletic tour, including the broadcast studio for the ACC. So a future time. Don't know when that will all be, but we've got several things on the list that we'd like to do, including the Roanoke campus. Obviously, again, work that's going on there with Friedman and that group there. Vet Med next year, hopefully. So, but for another time. So, future agenda item. So, any other business to come before the committee today? If not, I would thank you all for joining us today, and continue to be safe in your surroundings. Thank you.
Thanks, CT. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
See ya.